By the time you reach the end of this paragraph, someone in America, someone's mother, grandfather, or neighbor will have suffered a stroke. It happens fast. No warning, no time to prepare. One minute you're standing in the kitchen making coffee, the next your legs give out. Your words won't come. The world tilts, and in an instant, everything changes. Most people think of stroke as something that happens to other people. But here's what the numbers don't hide. Nearly 800,000 Americans suffer a stroke each year, and 3 out of 4 of them are over 65. It's not a rare event. It's a silent epidemic. And what's most terrifying isn't just the stroke itself. It's what comes after. The forgotten names, the unsteady hands, the way someone you love looks at you and no longer recognizes your face. For older adults, a stroke doesn't just attack the body. It takes a piece of your independence, your confidence, and sometimes even your identity. But here's the part most doctors won't say loud enough. Up to 80% of strokes are preventable. That's not speculation. That's straight from leading health organizations. And while prescriptions and procedures have their place, many of the most powerful solutions don't come in a pill. They come from your plate. Food is more than fuel. It's a message sent daily to your brain, your blood vessels, your heart. Eat the right foods and you create an environment where clots are less likely to form, blood flows more freely, and inflammation stays in check. Eat the wrong ones and you quietly build the perfect storm. Today, we're not talking about exotic superfoods or expensive supplements. We're talking about 6 simple, everyday foods that can dramatically reduce your risk of stroke. Each one has been studied. Each one supports your brain and blood vessels, and most importantly, they're foods you can start eating today. You won't find miracles here. What you'll find is something better: control. A chance to reclaim your health with choices that are still in your hands. So if you're over 60, or someone you love is, and you care about preserving your mind, your balance, and your independence, this is the moment to listen closely. Because a small decision today could be the difference between living on your own terms or watching the world change from a hospital bed. Every afternoon at 3 p.m., Mr. Harris, a retired school principal in Vermont, sits by his window with a book and a small square of dark chocolate. To anyone passing by, it might seem like a harmless treat, maybe even an indulgence. But for him, that tiny square is a quiet act of resistance, a way to protect his aging brain from something much bigger: stroke. It turns out that little ritual is backed by science. Dark chocolate, real dark chocolate, the kind with at least 70% cocoa, is packed with flavonoids. These are natural plant compounds that do more than satisfy a craving. They help relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and lower blood pressure. 3 key defenses against stroke. Your body uses flavonoids to create nitric oxide, a gas that tells blood vessels to widen, reducing the pressure in your arteries and letting blood flow more easily to your brain. In one long-term Swedish study involving over 37,000 older adults, those who ate dark chocolate regularly had a 17% lower chance of suffering a stroke. Not because chocolate is magic, but because it's medicine disguised as dessert. That's not all. Dark chocolate also contains magnesium, which helps regulate blood pressure, and small amounts of caffeine and theobromine, which gently stimulate brain function without overloading your heart. But like most things in life, it's about balance. You don't need a whole bar, just 1 or 2 small pieces a day, about the size of a postage stamp, is enough. Let it melt slowly after lunch as a mindful moment. Make it a ritual, not a reflex. And don't get fooled by sugar-free versions packed with artificial sweeteners. Some sugar alcohols like maltitol can upset your digestion. Also, if you're on antidepressants or blood pressure meds, It's wise to check with your doctor first. Chocolate contains tyramine, which may interfere with certain drugs. But for most seniors, a little dark chocolate isn't just a treat, it's smart nutrition. A small choice, a daily pause, and a surprisingly powerful way to guard your brain from the inside out. Because sometimes prevention starts with something as simple and as comforting as a bite of chocolate. When Maria turned 66, her doctor gave her the usual list: cut back on red meat, watch your salt, take your meds. But it wasn't until a conversation with her daughter, a nutritionist, that she discovered something far more powerful sitting quietly in her pantry: lentils and beans. No fancy labels, no miracle marketing, just simple, earthy food that's been feeding families for generations. And for older adults, this humble ingredient can mean the difference between a healthy brain and a future forever changed by stroke. Beans and lentils are rich in folate, a B vitamin many seniors unknowingly lack. And that matters because low folate levels are directly linked to elevated homocysteine, an amino acid that damages your arteries and silently raises your risk of blood clots and stroke. One study found that adding more folate-rich foods like lentils can reduce homocysteine levels by up to 25%, dramatically lowering the stroke risk, especially in people with high blood pressure or diabetes. But that's just the beginning. A single cup of cooked lentils delivers 15 grams of fiber, which helps lower LDL cholesterol, 18 grams of plant-based protein, supporting muscle without added fat, 730 mg of potassium, helping regulate blood pressure, and nearly all your daily folate needs in one bowl. Compared to red meat, which adds inflammation, saturated fat, and zero fiber, beans and lentils are an underrated superfood for brain and heart health. They're also incredibly easy to use. No need to be a chef. You can stir black beans into your salad, whip up lentil soup with garlic and olive oil, or try a simple rice and bean bowl with turmeric and greens. Worried about bloating? Soak dried beans overnight or rinse canned ones well. Start with a small half-cup serving and work your way up. Your gut will adjust, and your arteries will thank you. Maria did just that. She swapped out 2 beef meals per week with lentil-based dishes. Months later, her blood pressure improved, her energy returned, and her doctor was stunned at her progress, with no added medications. Sometimes it's not about finding the next big thing. It's about rediscovering what's been in your cupboard all along. Because stroke prevention doesn't start in the ER. It starts in your kitchen. When Leonard, a 70-year-old jazz guitarist from New Orleans, suffered a minor stroke, he thought his playing days were over. His left hand trembled, his confidence shattered. But during recovery, a nutritionist handed him something unexpected. Not a pill, not a supplement, but half an avocado on toast. Avocados may look like just another trendy food, but beneath that smooth green flesh is a powerhouse of heart and brain protective nutrients. And for older adults, it can be one of the smartest and tastiest choices you make each week. Here's why. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, the good fats that help lower LDL bad cholesterol and raise HDL good cholesterol. That matters deeply after 60 because clogged arteries are one of the main reasons strokes happen. When fat and cholesterol build up in your blood vessels, they narrow, stiffen, and increase the chance of a clot cutting off blood to your brain. But avocados go further. They're packed with potassium, even more than bananas. Potassium helps relax blood vessel walls and lowers blood pressure, a major win for stroke prevention. They also provide magnesium for heart rhythm, folate for reducing homocysteine, and vitamin K, which strengthens vessel walls and supports healthy circulation. In one study published by the American Heart Association, People who replaced butter or processed fats with avocado had a 21% lower risk of stroke. That's a powerful outcome from something that tastes so indulgent. The best part, you don't need much. A quarter to half an avocado a day is enough. Slice it into a salad, mash it on whole grain toast with a sprinkle of lemon, or blend it into a morning smoothie with spinach and berries. Worried about calories? Yes, avocados are energy dense, but they're nutrient dense too. And when you're choosing between empty carbs and a fat that feeds your arteries and brain, the choice becomes clearer with every bite. Leonard didn't just regain control of his hand, he gained a new rhythm in life. Avocado toast became part of his daily morning ritual, filling, flavorful, and healing. He still plays jazz on Fridays, and every note he hits is a reminder that recovery can be as simple as what's on your plate. Because sometimes, the most powerful medicine is green, creamy, and quietly saving your life, one forkful at a time. When Alina lost her husband to a stroke, she became consumed with one question: what could I have done differently? He wasn't unhealthy, not by modern standards. He took his meds, didn't smoke, walked every day. But in the silence that followed his absence, she began to dig deeper. And that's when she came across something doctors had barely mentioned: omega-3s. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout may not sound groundbreaking, but for the aging brain and heart, they're more than just food. They're fuel for survival. Here's the truth many people don't know until it's too late. As we age, our blood vessels stiffen. Inflammation increases. Blood becomes more prone to clotting. The brain, one of the most oxygen-hungry organs, starts to struggle. And it's precisely in this vulnerable state that a stroke strikes, often with no warning. Fatty fish step in like silent protectors. They're rich in omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA and EPA2 compounds that reduce systemic inflammation, lower blood triglycerides, and keep blood vessels smooth and flexible. In short, omega-3s create an internal environment where blood flows freely, clots are less likely, and the brain stays nourished. A major 2021 review published in the journal Stroke analyzed data from over 800,000 participants. The finding: people who ate fatty fish at least twice per week had a 13% lower risk of ischemic stroke, the kind caused by blood clots in the brain. That's not a marginal number. That's lives saved, memories preserved, independence extended. But omega-3s don't stop there. They also support the myelin sheath, the protective layer around nerve cells. This helps keep reflexes sharp, memory intact, and reaction time steady. In fact, seniors who consume enough omega-3s have been shown to score better on cognitive tests, even if they have no previous heart issues. Still, not all fish are equal. Wild-caught salmon, sardines, and trout are your best bets. They're high in omega-3s, low in mercury, and easy to prepare. Avoid large predatory fish like king mackerel and swordfish, which tend to accumulate mercury, especially dangerous for older adults. And skip the frying pan. Fried fish, often cooked in inflammatory oils, can negate the benefits and even increase stroke risk. Bake it with lemon and herbs, grill it with olive oil, or try something Alina discovered: a sardine and avocado mash on whole grain toast, heart-healthy and surprisingly delicious. If you don't enjoy the fishy taste, you're not alone. Many seniors find it too strong. Try marinating salmon in citrus overnight, blending trout into patties with herbs, or mixing canned mackerel into a vegetable stir-fry with turmeric and garlic. Flavor isn't a barrier, it's an opportunity. And what if you really can't eat fish? Quality fish oil supplements can help, but they're not all equal. Look for ones with a high concentration of EPA and DHA, certified for purity and freshness. Always check with your doctor, especially if you're on blood thinners. Eleanor made a simple choice. She began preparing baked salmon every Sunday and sardines once midweek. 3 months in, her cholesterol improved. 6 months in, her blood pressure dropped slightly. But what mattered more was how she felt: sharper, steadier, more in control. She started volunteering at a stroke recovery group. When new members asked what she changed, she smiled and said, "I stopped fearing fat. I started feeding my brain." Because when it comes to stroke, the scariest enemy is the one you can't feel until it's too late. And sometimes the most powerful defense isn't found in a pharmacy, but in a fillet. When Ruth turned 72, her morning walks became slower. Not because her legs hurt, but because her memory did. Names slipped. Keys vanished. Sentences trailed off halfway through. Her doctor called it normal aging. But Ruth didn't accept that. She believed the brain, like any muscle, needed the right kind of fuel. That's when she discovered the quiet power of berries. Blueberries. Strawberries, raspberries. They're small, yes. But inside each one is a pharmacy of protection, especially for the aging brain. What gives berries their bright color also gives them their strength: anthocyanins. These are powerful antioxidants that fight off inflammation, protect the lining of blood vessels, and help oxygen-rich blood reach the brain with ease. In a groundbreaking Harvard study tracking over 90,000 women for nearly 2 decades, researchers found that those who ate berries 3 or more times a week had up to 32% lower risk of stroke. That's not a vitamin, that's a handful of fruit. Berries also help with blood sugar control, a critical factor in stroke prevention, especially for seniors with type 2 diabetes. And they enhance cognitive function by supporting communication between brain cells, improving memory, reaction time, and mood. The best part: they're effortless. You don't need to cook. Just add a handful to oatmeal, blend into a smoothie, toss with Greek yogurt or sprinkle over a salad. And don't worry about price. Frozen berries are just as nutritious as fresh, and they last longer. Aim for a half to 1 cup per day and try to mix colors. Each berry offers different protective compounds. Blueberries are great for memory. Strawberries are high in vitamin C. Raspberries give you fiber and flavonoids. Ruth didn't become a neuroscientist overnight. She just made a new ritual: a bowl of mixed berries after her walk. And over time, the fog began to lift. Her words came quicker. Her smile returned. Not because berries are magic, but because they help the body do what it was designed to do: heal. Sometimes it's not the big changes that matter most. It's the small ones you choose every morning, like a bowl of tiny fruit that quietly protects your brain from the inside out. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Walter stared at his breakfast plate. Toast, eggs, no color, no life. After his brother suffered a massive stroke, Walter promised himself he'd take better care of his health. But he didn't know where to start until a dietitian asked him a simple question: "How many greens are on your plate each day?" He hesitated. Not many. That one answer changed everything. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, arugula, collard, and Swiss chard aren't just good for you. For people over 60, they may be essential. These vegetables are loaded with stroke-fighting nutrients: folate, magnesium, potassium, vitamin K, and dietary nitrates. Let's break that down. Folate helps reduce homocysteine, a compound in the blood that damages arteries and raises stroke risk. Magnesium and potassium work together to stabilize blood pressure. And vitamin K, it helps strengthen blood vessels and maintain proper clotting, especially important for older adults on blood thinners. But one of the most fascinating benefits comes from dietary nitrates. Your body converts them into nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes and widens blood vessels, improving blood flow to the brain and reducing clot risk. In one study published in Stroke, women who ate leafy greens daily had a 20 to 30% lower risk of ischemic stroke, the kind caused by a blood clot blocking brain circulation. Another clinical trial showed that seniors who consumed spinach regularly saw improved arterial function in just 1 week. Walter started small. He added a handful of spinach to his scrambled eggs, swapped iceberg lettuce for peppery arugula, tossed kale into his evening soup. Within months, his blood pressure numbers improved, and so did his energy and balance. If you're new to greens, don't worry. You don't have to eat them raw or plain. Sauté spinach with garlic and olive oil. Blend kale into smoothies. Add chopped collard to stews. Aim for 1 cooked cup or 2 raw cups per day, a simple habit with powerful results. Greens may not come in flashy packaging or taste like dessert, but make no mistake, they're nature's quiet defense. A daily shield between your brain and the stroke that could change everything. Sometimes the best medicine doesn't come from a pharmacy. It comes from the garden.